United Nations continues to see Africa as an important region and continues to further its work in Africa despite present challenges. Of course, Africa has always had its challenges, conflict, economic issues, but what we are noticing is that Africa is rising, and the economic potential of Africa is what we want to connect into as the UN Global Compact, and we see so many opportunities that we can really showcase the brilliant work that the continent is doing and really help drive those economic opportunities on the continent. As you mentioned, energy is a big piece. And domestically, there's a lot of efforts that are happening. It's been a pleasure, absolute pleasure, being here in Lagos and seeing the huge potential that the Lagos state, the Nigerian government, and indeed the African continent is making, coming together to drive economic access for the continent. Of course, it's not without challenges due to the current geopolitical context. However, what we want to bring to Africa through the UN Global Compact is that convening catalytic role to ensure that we're connecting key stakeholders to problem solve towards driving energy access for Africans on the continent. That's just one piece out of the puzzle that we're trying to solve as the UN. We're also looking at digital transformation, digital access, and Africa is at the forefront of this effort. Young Africans, including here in Nigeria, really advancing in the fintech area and so many more. AI is really here. Africans are taking advantage of that, and we want to ensure that the key tools that Africa needs to leap into the next century are available so that that leap can become a reality, particularly for the upcoming generation.
So you've been in Nigeria and you've met members of the business community. What do we expect out of that?
Right. We've had really exciting meetings with the business community. We see the efforts that they're making to drive sustainability. They're in our membership. We are the biggest business sustainability network that exists globally. We have over 25,000 companies within our fold. And in Africa, companies are growing. We have over 1,500 companies, both from the large multinational companies, companies with operations across Africa, and also companies that are SMEs really being part of our network. And what we are seeing from businesses and hearing is that they want to do more domestically, but they want to connect to international players. We're hearing they want to make South-South connections. So from businesses in China, in the Middle East, across the continent, they see that the connection points are even more important now than ever before. And what they need is a platform that will bring these stakeholders together. And that's where we come in, because we provide a platform to convene and to connect, and as well as to catalyze, which really is our motto. And we do that through the Global Africa Business Initiative. It's been around for 3 years now. We're going into our 4th year, and we've become world-class, a premier gathering, well-known across the world, because we bring global business leaders to connect with African business leaders and to drive change in so many critical areas, including climate action. Somebody has to do the work, and Africans are up to the task.
So talking about Gabi now and these your meetings, what's the strategy? Because you could be dealing with Nigeria, and the individuals or the small companies or businesses may not feel your impact. So what's the strategy for you to really get out there and people know that you're in existence in the country?
Exactly. So we have a 3-pronged strategy. One is for us to come together as the UN, and what we do is to bring other UN partners together. So as you mentioned, energy, C4All is championing energy, and they now fold in the Gabi initiative. UNDP, the ECA, Economic Commission for Africa, we're working together, and that's really a unique platform. We're not working in isolation, but bringing our comparative advantage as the UN together through this Gabi platform. So that's really an important piece that we bring in. We also have the partnership with the African Union, and we are working to also achieve the African Union's priorities. The transitions happened very recently, and Gabi is one of the platforms that will help them advance the 2063 agenda. But more importantly, what we are doing is to partner with key stakeholders, including yourselves in the media, to really amplify efforts that bring to scale initiatives that can drive sustainability and economic advancement on the continent. So right from innovative work that's happening in food systems, in education, we really showcase through our platform those initiatives and hope that global business leaders will see the potential and the opportunity and connect to these initiatives and bring them to light. What we want to stop is stop talking. We want to bring about action, and that's what we focus on at Gabi.
And so what result can we expect in the shortest possible time?
Right. So in the shortest possible time, we want to see, GDPs increasing. We want to see ESG advancing on the continent. We want to see the SDGs being back on track. We want to see girls and boys really seeing the potential of investing in Africa. We want to see international companies coming into Africa and really ensuring that they can support, the growth. We've just been to Eco-Atlantic, we see the massive opportunities that is bringing to not only Lagos but to the continent, that such a structure exists. We know it's not without its challenges, but then it brings in huge opportunities. How can we spotlight the opportunities? How can we bring key stakeholders together to problem solve so that truly it can become similar to all world-class places that we see around the world? And that's our goal.
And we keep hearing the future is in Africa. Africa has potentials, challenges that you don't need to go begging, from the international and the Western world and over that. But how do we really get Africans to believe in themselves, first of all, and then begin to explore these potential that the world has seen?
Right. I think with the digital space, which is one of our core themes, we see that Africans are taking advantage of that space. They are connecting with fellow Africans in other countries. There's no longer that divide, that these borders, artificial borders have created, but we're seeing connections happening. And we're seeing that when they're focused on really being a force for good, Africans are tapping into that. Take issues around climate action. We have initiatives that really are advancing this work on the continent. I can give example. We have on stage, on our global stage, companies like Soma Group looking at how to enhance infrastructure, but doing that with a sustainability lens. We have the IFC, AFC in our partnership, the African Development Bank. And I think once, the business leaders talk to the DFIs and also talk to governments, and that's a unique piece that we bring in. We bring in the policy makers. Over the past 3 years, we've had conversations with over 10 heads of states in our midst. And that's why we convene also in New York on the back of the UN General Assembly, because heads of states are there. Sometimes it's difficult for business leaders to have that opportunity to talk about their pain points, the enabling environments that they need, the policy regulations and reforms that sometimes hinder them from being able to go an extra mile in bringing about, these sustainability changes. But when we bring them sitting next, side by side, just as you and I are sitting with the head of state of Nigeria or Botswana, as we've done in previous years, then, connections are formed and change and progress can happen for the continent.
And I believe that's part of the plan for the Unstoppable Africa event.
Indeed. So we'll be in New York again in September on the 21st and 22nd at the Marriott McKee Hotel. And we'll be bringing heads of states, business leaders from across the world, including from Africa, together over 2 days to problem solve and to really showcase and announce things that are happening at scale to drive economic transformation on the continent. But before we get to New York, we have a number of stops on the continent. We hope you'll be there with us. We'll be at the Africa CEO Forum in Abidjan in May, where we'll have a smaller convening. We call them the Gabi Bridges, where we'll bring stakeholders to talk about one of our key themes. We'll also be connecting with the Africa Union at their second media summit in July as well. And we'll be back here in Nigeria in November to convene one of our Gabi conversations in country.